Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. We've got a webinar about volunteering opportunities and ocean-related volunteering around the UK. We've got three great speakers today. Matt's joining. Matt Foss, who you can see will be speaking next. I'll leave you all to introduce yourselves individually. Conor Savage will be speaking about sort of the volunteering work that he does and sort of broader benefits of volunteering after that. And then we're going to have Victoria Mentor Joy, who's part of IMarEST, and she'll be speaking about the work that they do and how you can get involved. So Matt, can I pass it over to you and let you
Yep,
see how we go?
yep, absolutely. Right, so let me just I'm going to share my screen now. Right, let me just work out. There we go. Share. Right, you can tell me if you can all see that, and then I'll go to
Uh,
presentation view as well.
there we are. We can
Right,
start by.
excellent. That's great. Okay, so I'll just say a bit about who I am. Yeah, I'm Matt Frost, and actually for my day job, I head up the international office at Plymouth Marine Laboratory. And yeah, but my background, I'm a marine biologist originally. That was my original training, doing a lot of research. But actually, I've moved into the science policy arena where I've been working for quite a while now. And the most relevant part of what I do for today's session is that I chair the UK National Decade Committee. And today I'm going to be talking mainly about the work of the National Decade Committee. I am going to give some background to begin with on the Ocean Decade. Many of you, perhaps all of you, will know all of this, but I always like to just put it in context. And I'm going to leave enough time so we can have questions and discussions at the end because I've realized the focus of this. Oh, hello?
Yeah, we can hear you now, Matt. We lost you for a second, but you're back.
Brilliant. Okay, I've just turned my video off, so hopefully that will help. So, just a reminder why we have national decade committees. The wider context is the fact that we, at the global level and feeding the international level, we're in trouble in many ways. So, the World Ocean Assessments have been reporting. The first two basically said that many areas of the ocean are degraded. The second World Ocean Assessment said the situation hasn't improved, and the third World Ocean Assessment underway is likely to say things have got even worse. So it's just the context, really, with climate change, with all the pressures on the ocean, we need to act pretty quickly. Um, in terms of the global ambition in which the National Decade Committee and the Ocean Decade sits, we have these sustainable development goals that, with the targets for 2030, to achieve all sorts of things in relation to SDG 14, which is the target specifically related to the ocean. But actually, it's important to say that the ocean is relevant to all 17 of the UN Sustainable Development Goals. And each of these SDGs has a series of targets that we have to meet. So, at the international level, this is really what the global ambition is, and why we have essentially a an ocean decade and national decade committees. So that I just think it's. I know you probably all know this already, but I do like to set this high level context. We have a lot to do globally to get our environment and the health of the planet back into a good shape. So. In order to achieve Sustainable Development Goal 14, life below water, and meet all those targets, but also, as I say, to feed into all of these issues, the Ocean Decade was established, running from 2020 on to 2030. And I've highlighted that in red there because actually, you know, we don't have long. This is, you know, we're sort of 6 years, 5.5 years now to do this, to achieve all these targets. So if you look on the right of this slide, there are three high-level decade objectives, which is all really about getting the ocean science feeding into this policy area, the ocean we want. There are 10 decade challenges, which I won't go through now. You may be familiar with them, but if not, you can go online and read a bit more about them. And you can see once again on the right that all of these decade outcomes feed into a number of the Sustainable Development Goals. And the UN decade was set up really in this sort of hierarchical structure. So you have these big programs, tend to be decadal, large scale, multi-year, multi-country. And there's a number of these programs, and I'll mention some UK-led ones shortly. Then there are projects which you can be involved in through the Ocean Decade. These tend to be shorter, 2 to 3 years, more focused. Usually they're actually linked to a program. So each program will have a number of projects, but there are some standalone projects as well. There are also activities. So you may run a workshop or have a single publication or have an exhibition or a conference or something like that, which you can actually approach the UN, the IOC, and say, can this be badged as an ocean decade activity? And it's really nice to do that. I'll come back to this, but what it does is it gives you visibility and profile. So if you want to run a training workshop and badge it through the Ocean Decade, having their logo, having it as an official UN Decade activity is a really nice thing to do. And then finally, of course, there's contributions. So they're always looking for people to volunteer, either to provide financial aid or some in-kind sort of contribution to the decade. So where are we with the decade? Well, this was presented at a recent meeting. So this is as of April 2024. So overall, 52 programs, 99 contributions, 363 projects, and 715 activities. So you can see that globally, there are 62 countries that have been involved in these actions. So globally, there's a lot of buy-in to the Ocean Decade, and you can see here where the focus is in terms of the challenges. I won't go through this. But the important thing is this middle box here. So I'll explain this in a minute, but essentially there are 12 decade collaborative centres, 16 implementing partners, and that number now is 39 national decade committees. So, you know, that's where we kind of fit in as the NDC, and then there are also task forces. And then I won't go into the engagement in outreach part, but these are sort of the main the main sort of activities around engagement and outreach, which, as I said, once again, if you want to know more, we can talk about. So what do we mean by NDCs and DCCs and DCOs, and what do those figures mean? Well, essentially, you've got the UN General Assembly, IOC UNESCO, which is the only branch of the UN with science in its remit and in its title, reports to the UNGA, the UNGA. And then beneath that, you've got a decade advisory board. You've got a number of other entities that feed in or work with, should I say, IOC. You then have a decade coordination unit, which is based in Paris, the IOC Secretariat. And then underneath this, you have a number of regional structures. So decade collaborative centres, etc. So an example would be the West Indian Regional Centre, which India run, and there are a number of these. And then underneath that, the national decade committees fit in. And the NDCs are essentially voluntary They're inclusive. We want them to be diverse and bring people in from a lot of sectors. And the idea is that they support and increase a country's participation in the Ocean Decade by mobilizing the ocean community at the national level. There are operational guidelines for how we work and best practice manual. But our job is basically to be the focal point at the national level, but also to engage at the international level, and I'll show how that works shortly. I haven't updated the list on the right, so I haven't added the Netherlands, for example, but this is just to say this is the spread of where the National Decade Committees are. So there are 39 of these. They all operate very differently, different levels of resource. And I know that the IOC is hoping for more of these to be established, but it's important to show that the UK in setting up its NDC is really fulfilling its global remit. So this is the UK-NDC. So as I said, we act as a national focal point. This was the first meeting we held. So this was at the Foreign Office building in Charles Street in London. So this was the first in-person meeting we had. And we've had a number of meetings since then. We meet twice a year in person, plus at least twice a year online as well. And we also have lots of other activities which once again I'll come on to. And the committee is made up of members, so people who have applied to be part of the committee, and also what we call ex officio members. So for example, it's to make sure we have UK government departments represented, in this case, DEFRA and the Foreign Office, and also to make sure we have devolved administrations, so government representation from Scotland and the UK. And as I said, the membership's very important. We really want to make sure we've got a good balance across sectors. So it's not just academics. We've got things like the health sector across the country, across age span. So we want ECOPs very strongly represented on the committee, but also, a good gender balance. So to be diverse overall, that's what we're really aiming for, because that really helps us function as a committee. Right, sorry, I'm just trying to move to the next slide and it seems to have... there we go. So what is the mission of the NDC? Well, our mission is to amplify the UK's collective voice. It's all about transformational ocean science. So really what we want to do is do something different. We want to deliver the aims of the decade, but we want to do it in a way that's kind of unique and different, a bit more creative than the normal way. And our vision really is to mobilise the UK as much as we can to engage in the decade and help achieve those overarching objectives. And as I said, we've got a planetary crisis, as they call it, and really we want to mobilise people to address that. So the Decade Committee, we have, as I said, we have the membership, which is supported by a secretariat, and we have 4 subcommittees. So everybody sitting on the committee engages in one of these areas. And then I won't go into it. Actually, the thing on the right, this is high-level policy, UK government policy on the ocean, which is kind of our context for what we do. But of course, all this will change because we have a new government. So who knows how that high-level context will change. So what do we have so far in terms of UK engagement? Well, we have 3 very large programs being led out of the UK. It's actually 4. We need to add the other one on because Plymouth Marine Laboratory are leading a program as well. But in Plymouth, we have Challenger 150 in Plymouth. We have the NOC leading the Jetson program, and then we have Scotland, St Andrews leading Gobi. I won't go through all of these, but I think what you can see is that the UK is doing quite well in leading major programs, projects and contributions, although we would like to see this grow, and I won't show the map of activities. You can go to our website if you want to find out more about what's been endorsed and what we're doing at the UK level. And you can also look at this this map. So we've mapped out all the stakeholders that we work with and want to work with. And in terms of getting involved in volunteering, that's another area where you might want to look at and say, well, where do we fit in here? Where do I fit in? Is there any activity that the NDC is supporting within these sectors? And how can I be involved? So at the international level, so that's very much what's happening nationally. At the international level, as I said, the National Decade Committee is also promoting what we do and working with others. So the UK has actually taken a lead, working with Brazil and India and bringing together the other 39 National Decade Committees. And this is from a recently where we attended a conference in Barcelona. So you can see left here, that was the poster that we submitted, just talking about what the UK is doing, talking about what the aim of the UK work is. And then you can see here, so one of these images is me chairing, I chair both of the events on behalf of the UK, bringing together, like I said, there were a lot of countries represented, which was great. And we brought them all together. We actually talked about all our NDCs. So we learned about how other NDCs do volunteering as well and what they're doing to engage their communities. We shared best practice. And then we had a lot of breakout groups. You can see one there with some of the UK members working in this case with Slovenia and India and other countries to just talk about how we do things better as National Decade Committees. And then an image there of us all in front of our poster. So that was the NDC committee in Barcelona. We're actually hoping at the next one in 2027 to have even more representation. There were very limited numbers, so it was good that we got so many people there because it was quite difficult to get the accreditation. I won't talk about feedback from the Ocean Decade Conference, but it was a really successful. So as I said, we engage internationally as well as nationally. So, what are the ways to engage? So, I mean, this is really a mixture of things. So, you can engage with the decade. Anybody can come up with an activity. And as I said, I really want to push this because a lot of people think to engage with the decade, you have to come up with this huge global program involving multiple countries and universities and organizations and lead on that. You don't. You can literally come up with the idea that we want to run a single event, in our sort of locally. It's a conference, we want to bring in, say, the ECOP community. The only thing you have to do is look at some of the criteria, like how would that feed into the decade as a whole? Because obviously we can't just badge anything we do to the decade. It's got to feed in to the decade objectives. But if you can look across the decade challenges, look at the outcomes and say, actually, what we're doing feeds into that. And also, if you can bring in sort of wider representation, make it more sort of focused nationally and globally, then actually that gives you the criteria, then approach the UN and say, well, actually, we'd like to badge this. And the other thing is to approach us as a committee to say, actually, and they're already talking about this as well, the committee is providing more support down on the ground for people who want to get involved in putting forward activities. We might be able to support that, provide a letter of support, or just guide you in getting support from the UN. So it's worth looking on the UN website at these different ideas, being an expert working group, setting up an informal working group. There are so many ways to get involved. So please go ahead, but approach us if you want some support on that. The other thing just to note is there will be calls in the future for more members or new members to the committee. We're all signed up to do a period on the committee, but not for the whole decade, which is probably a relief to everybody, in fact. So keep an eye out for calls for new members to the committee. But also keep an eye out for meetings and events. So I know some of the subcommittees, like the communications one, Natalie and others have been very involved in running events. There may be opportunities to get involved there to support those. But we're also looking at doing events for the committee as a whole. So bringing together stakeholders in the UK. We want to run a big meeting, possibly in London or elsewhere early next year. We'll invite people to be involved, but we're always looking for people who'd like to volunteer and help out with that. So that's another opportunity. So why would you do this for a start? I mean, if you're running an activity or something, why would you even bother considering, but why would you even consider getting UN engagement? Why not just go ahead and do it? Well, there are a number of reasons. One, it gives it recognition. So if you're doing something as a volunteer, as I said, an event, training, whatever it is, or you're, a nominated expert, but you're doing it with the UN endorsement, it puts you as part of this collective global effort towards the Ocean Decade vision. You get a lot of visibility. I mean, I know from stuff I've done, you put the UN logo on anything you're doing, a meeting, a conference, or whatever, and immediately you're visible to the entire global, the global community, but also the national community, because we would love as the decade to put stuff you're doing, onto the website, and profile it that way. There's obviously you get increased collaboration, so you start to work with people, and we're happy to put people in touch with others. So if you're interested in volunteering in a specific area and you approach us and say, well, actually, I'd love to help out with this subcommittee or this area or this event, or I'd love to meet people that have a similar interest to me, then the UN is a great way of doing that. New connections, but ultimately, as I keep going back to, it's because we're all pulling in the same direction to support the UN decade vision, the science we need for the ocean we want. So I do really, like I say, encourage you to look into this, because it's a great way of moving forward in terms of giving profile for what you're doing. So just to finish off, because I was told 20 minutes and I'm almost on 20 minutes now. If you want to talk to any with a member of the NDC, either myself or somebody else, then please go to the website and find out more about what we're doing. We have, as I said, a very wide range of sectors and interests represented. So it may be somebody like me that is appropriate to talk to, but it might be actually we pass you on to another member of the committee and they can help you with your particular interest or area of expertise. The other way is to email the UK-NDC Secretariat. They can also help as well. So hopefully that's given you a good overview of what we do as the National Decade Committee, and I'm happy now to take any questions or get any comments, because I think the other thing, just to finish off, we're always open to feedback on how we can do things better, how we can be more visible, how we can provide more support. So I'm open to questions, but I'm also open to suggestions of how we can support you as the ECOP community and a volunteering community as well. So I will stop there. Thank you. I hope you heard all of that.
We certainly did. Thank you very much for that, Matt. I can't see any questions in the Q&A at the moment, but one thing I think it would be good to understand, if people are wanting to sort of join, I guess it's more potentially the Ocean Decade rather than specifically the UK,
Yeah.
and they're wanting to join in with programs or initiatives. What kind of support is available to people that are joining? Is there help
Yeah.
to set things up and run things? Is that an incentive to get involved?
Yeah, so I mean, so there's two elements to this. So in terms of support for if people wanted to get involved in, the decade per se, there is there's lots on the website, on the UN website, lots of guidance and manuals. I have to say it's quite complicated. So what we do at the UK level with the National Decade Committee is we've developed all of our own sort of slightly easier guidance. So we've got FAQs that you can look at on the website, which should be a much briefer and easier way to find out how to get engaged. We've also approached a number of people who are already successfully engaged from the UK, and they've produced some best practice. So how did they do it? How did they get involved? So I think that's the other. So That's the first thing I would say for the website. But as I said earlier, yeah, the other thing is we're happy, and I should have said not just to talk to you as committee members, but actually to put you in touch with other people in the UK. So there are things like the Royal Academy of Arts, for example, who are very engaged with the UN. We can put you in touch with somebody from there if that's your particular angle you're coming from, or if you're involved in cultural heritage. We know the people leading on the cultural heritage side from the UK. So I think that's one way we can really help is providing these connections. One thing I will have to say though is that one thing we don't have access to at the moment is funding, direct funding. But obviously, this is a meeting about volunteering, so we're hoping people are open to that. But what we can do is we're trying more and more to look at where the sources of funding might be.
Yeah, I think that's great. I think there's definitely sort of that's an avenue that still we're exploring with the ECOP UK and as you are with the UK-NDC. I think that's
Yeah.
something that is on its way, and hopefully it means that we're going to be able to do more and more good work. So thank you very much for that. If anything comes into the Q&A, we might be able to come back to you. But I might pass over to Conor now to speak about a bit about the volunteering work he does and volunteering in general. So thank you very much, Matt.
Okay, I'll hang on in case there's more Q&A. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Matt. It's always great hearing more about, obviously, the Ocean Decade and the work of the UK-NDC. Let me just bring up my presentation. Can someone just give me a quick nod that you can see that?
Yep, all good, Conor.
Oh, then that's not worked as intended. Hold on 1 second, because I've got the multiple monitors. Should be fine. I should just be able to screen share one of the monitors. There we go. Okay, you can see that now, presumably?
Not at the moment.
Oh, how about now?
There we go. Yeah, we've got it now.
Perfect. So you can see the presentation.
Yep.
Ideal. Okay. Hello, everyone. So my name is Conor Savage, and I'm going to be speaking to you today about insights into volunteering, the personal professional developments, professional benefits it can have, and how to get started. Just give you a little bit of background about myself. So I studied a bachelor's and master's in marine biology at Bangor University. I specialised in the impact of climate change on the Arctic and how it adversely affects the sea ice reliant, sea ice associated species and inhabitants, in particular walruses, which is why they've got pride of place there on the slide. However, I then did quite a hard pivot. I joined Ulster Bank, which is an Irish bank, back in 2019 as a Change of Business Solutions graduate. And I followed this by becoming a climate reporting manager with NatWest Group in Edinburgh, where I provided advice and technical expertise on climate, nature, and other sustainability related policy. I'm now an ESG program manager at Sainsbury's, where I'm responsible for the development and delivery of Sainsbury's Bank's ESG strategy. So very much started in the academic marine biology world, did that hard pivot into industry with finance. But I feel like I've done a pretty good job, and I'll speak a little bit about that in a moment in terms of balancing both worlds. So even though I work in industry, throughout all of this, I've continued to volunteer heavily with organisations in the academic sphere, including but not limited to the ones you can see up here. So the UN Ocean Decade via the ECOP programme, the IMarEST, which I won't speak about during my presentation because Victoria's going to be speaking that during her presentation, the Royal Society of Biology, the UK Polar Network, Arctic Frontiers, IEMA, and Arctic Passion. Now, obviously, you've dialed in for an ECOP UK webinar, so I'll start off speaking a little bit about that. So my involvement with the ECOP programme is in three ways. So the one that's got me here today is being the UK node coordinator for the ECOP UK node, so basically leading on the UK national node as a whole. I'm also the Europe node coordinator, so coordinating on things for Europe as a whole for the ECOP program within Europe. And then finally, as the training and mentoring manager for the ECOP program, so basically leading on our capacity development activities. So obviously quite a few there. The UK Polar Network, I'm a committee member at large with them. So basically what that means is I join the committee meetings, I provide support there by giving advice or suggestions for new ideas. One thing I'm currently working on at the moment is developing. We've actually recently got approved for a session at the Arctic Circle Assembly in Reykjavik on international polar science policy linkages, which I've been working on with a couple of the polar research groups out in Asia. I won't speak to IMarEST because Victoria will cover off all the volunteering opportunities you can get there. Apex and Arctic Passion. So I've recently joined the executive committee of Apex. But the way I got involved with them was through the Arctic Sharing Circle they did, which was up in far northern Finland, where we stayed with the Indigenous Sami people, learning about their language, the history, the land rights, their culture, etc., which was absolutely fantastic. And then you had Arctic Frontiers, where I was selected for their Emerging Leaders program, where basically we had about 30 emerging leaders from all over the world getting together in Norway, Arctic Norway, to basically talk about the key issues facing the Arctic today. Before we finished up by going to the Arctic Frontiers conference, which you can see in that photo there with us on stage, where we engaged with senior stakeholders on policy, those issues, and making sure that youth and emerging leaders had a voice in the room. IEMA is the Institute of Environmental Management Assessment. I'm involved with them for their policy practice committee, basically helping steer the organisation as a whole. But I also sit on their climate change and energy steering committee as well, due to obviously my background and the work I do. And then finally, the Royal Society of Biology, where I'm an ambassador for them, where I'm currently reviewing some of their training courses, etc. But the reason I go for all of this is just to give you an idea of how wide the spectrum is that volunteering is, how different organisation you can get a lot of different opportunities to get involved in and to work with. So I'm going to do a couple of case studies and I'm going to get into the details of tips and tricks and the benefits of how I'd suggest going about doing something similar. So if people ask me what's the most important volunteering that I've ever done, it's a pretty easy answer for me, which is at my last job, there was an organisation called the Sustainable Futures Network. It was an employee-led network that focuses on bettering sustainability for colleagues at home and at work. I led and managed a team there of around 15 to 20 colleagues on that developed climate change, biodiversity, and other sustainability-related training beyond the oceans and energy. And over the course of my involvement with that team, we delivered that training to 10,000 plus attendees over the course of 2 years, which is a little over a fifth of the entire business. And we've raised the base level of knowledge across the business, so more advanced learning materials can be developed centrally and rolled out. So we had a sizable impact. The reason that it's in my opinion, not only my favorite, but also the most important volunteering that I've done, is that not only was it one which I found incredibly fulfilling, it was also the first major piece of volunteering that I did. So I picked up the education lead role, which was the role I had with them whilst I was towards the tail end of my graduate program at Ulster Bank. And when eventually I did roll off the graduate program, got my role with NatWest Group, it was in no small part because I had done this role. When I was being interviewed, when I spoke to the people afterwards, when I got the job who'd interviewed me, they made it very clear that not only was it my experience from the graduate program, the work I'd done there, it was as much the experience that I'd built up being education lead for the Sustainable Futures Network. As you can see, this work here that I've done. And I think that really points to the idea that experience isn't just what you do for the day job, it's not what you're paid for. Experience as well as also your volunteering experience. And if you build the volunteering experience in the right way, it can take you to some pretty fantastic places, as you saw on the previous slide in terms of all the stuff I've been able to do. But the one that's obviously This then led on from there to me getting involved in the ECOP program, where I became that training and mentoring manager role I mentioned. The idea was to strengthen and enrich the voice of ECOPs as the program as a whole, but in terms of training and mentoring, it was really about upskilling ECOPs around the world with the skills and experience they need. So in that, I lead and manage a team of around 10 members, which is both international. We've got members all over the world, and also intersectoral in terms of what they do. So we've got people from academia, we've got people from industry, we've got people from policy. So it's from quite a few different places. We organise webinars on a bunch of different topics. So recent ones have included on seagrass, the use of drones, etc. And we've also reviewed mentoring programs. So if you look on the ECO program website, you'll be able to find, if you look under opportunities tab at the top of the web page, you'll find a mini database of mentoring opportunities that we've reviewed for people to be involved with, and that looks at where the mentoring program is, what's the key focus, who's the key audience, what type of mentors we will get. So I'd recommend having a look at. And we're also looking to establish meter mentor sessions, but they're still early in development, so I won't speak too much about that. And we're also developing training materials, so for instance, on DE&I and the ocean sciences. And as I said, this is all to benefit furthering the personal and professional development of ECOPs as a whole. So, got a lot of experience, a lot of different places. What are the benefits that I've found with them? So first and foremost, making connections is a great one to call out. So volunteering allows you to connect and make things better with groups that you otherwise may not have been involved with, either in your day job or just your day-to-day life. But it is a two-way street. Obviously, you're providing your time and effort to an organisation, but you very much do build up your own benefit, your own experience with them, as much as the cause you choose to help. So by dedicating your time, you can make new friends, expand your network, boost your social skills, boost your skills in general, as well, all of which are a tremendous benefit from a personal standpoint. Personal growth can provide you opportunities to develop your skills like leadership, communication, problem solving, and teamwork. These skills contribute to that personal growth, as I said, building your self-confidence and fulfillment. So volunteering can be incredibly fulfilling if done right. So the reason I say if done right is when you're choosing where you want to volunteer with and what volunteering you want to do, make sure you don't overburden yourself too quickly. So try and work out what your capacity is for volunteering. Try and work out which roles align with that. Try and work out which roles you think are most important to you and try and pursue them. One thing I have seen happen before, and even I myself have been guilty of it from time to time, is make sure you know where your limits are in terms of what's the appropriate amount of volunteering, what's too much, what you can balance with everything else that you're doing. It is a bit of trial and error. You will have to learn that. One of the most valuable skills I've ever picked up, and personally, it's probably one of the most valuable skills anyone can have, is what I refer to as the art of the spinning plates, which is the idea of managing different priorities across different organizations and being able to make sure everything keeps advancing as you'd hope it would. So it is make sure to be doing it right. And it can reduce stress if done the right way. So it provides you a break from the day job, whilst also instilling you with a sense of purpose in an area that your day job may not provide. Oh, thought out there. So learning new skills, as I said, in addition to the personal growth, you also get the valuable work experience, especially if it's outside of your day job's industry/sector. This is something that I think is really valuable. It's a phrase I've often used before, which is volunteering is the vanguard, which is if you identify an industry or a sector you want to move into that you don't have day job experience, go and find volunteering opportunities in that industry or sector. Because if you can build up your experience from a volunteering perspective, it's a lot easier then to break into the industry in terms of as a day job. As I've said, you can also acquire new skills that can be useful in various aspects of your life. So I've already covered kind of like the personal side, but the professional side, your networking skills. Once again, one of the most valuable skills you can have is being good at networking, because if you have a strong network, that can help in terms of supporting you with your career, identifying mentors who can support you, finding new opportunities, both on day jobs and the volunteering as a whole. And then other skills such as like it really depends down to the volunteering opportunity you get. So one thing you can do is in addition to identifying volunteering opportunities that you're personally interested in, you can also identify volunteering opportunities that can help you build your skills. So if you're nervous about doing presentations, find a volunteering opportunity that leads you to do presentations. If you're nervous about networking, find a volunteering opportunity that leads you to do a lot of networking. If you're worried about your ability to pull together, for instance, presentations, find a volunteering opportunity where you can build out presentations, etc. And it advances your career. So as I said, it's one thing that I found very much is the case is that when people look at experience in terms of your CV, they do look at day job experience, volunteering experience differently, but they're a lot closer in weight than you potentially may think they are. So it can be incredibly, incredibly valuable to build a volunteering experience in addition to your day job experience. As I said, I can attest to that given the fact that my previous job I got in no small part because of my volunteering experience as well as my day job experience. As I said, enhance your CV, expand your network. It can lead to job prospects. As I said, that's happened with me. And it can sometimes be valued even more so than paid experience, which is kind of what I was mentioning there about if you want to move into a new sector where you don't have day job experience, your volunteer experience in that sector will be more valuable than your day job experience by and large. And then obviously a really important one here is volunteering can be a lot of fun. And if you commit to the right opportunities, it shouldn't feel like work. Obviously, there's going to be some days where if you're super busy with everything, it may be a little tougher to push through. But I've always truly believed that if you're doing volunteering, you should be loving it every time you do it. You should be loving it when you're working on it. And obviously, everyone has a day where things are a bit busier or you may not be feeling entirely up for it, the same way with a day job. But it should never feel like it's a burden or anything like that. And if it does, then you may have strayed into, as I said, well, they're past that right balance of doing things, which is important to make sure that you don't do. I'm just going to flip back here just to talk about how to do it. So obviously, there's a boatload of organisations here that it definitely isn't how I started off. So what I'd say is in terms of how to go about doing it effectively is identify maybe one or two or three organizations you think you'd want to volunteer with that have got good opportunities to volunteer with, and basically reach out to them about volunteering opportunities, look on the websites for volunteering opportunities. Heck, if you can see an area where you think it'd be good for someone to volunteer in, sometimes reach out. Many of the things I do is because of the fact I've reached out and suggested I'd be happy to do something from a volunteer perspective to get it underway. But it takes time to build up. Like all these organizations that we're involved with here, I've been doing this now for many, many years in terms of building up. So you definitely have to look like this is definitely the extreme end of volunteering. Most of the time for most people, it's usually like two, as I said, like one or two or three volunteering roles. But it's all about making sure you find the right ones for you, the right ones for balance, and the right ones in terms of fulfillment, both personally and professionally, and also helping you advance if that is also something that's important to you. Research is a critical one as well, which is if there is an area you're interested in volunteering with, definitely do your research, find out more. I've learned a tremendous amount about the volunteering landscapes for both the marine spaces and the polar spaces because of my volunteering that I definitely didn't have at the start. And obviously, the more you learn, the more you may be able to find areas you can get involved with, which is critical as well. I think have I reached time, Joe? I think I've reached time.
I think so, just about,
Yeah,
Connor.
no worries. So I'll bring it to a close there because I don't want to cut into times for questions as well. But thank you everyone for listening. I'm happy to answer any quick questions that people have got it, but I'm also conscious of time as well.
I think the only thing that's sort of come up is people asking about sort of the specific nodes in countries.
Oh, yeah.
And sort of, I guess first of all, why they aren't set up in sort of every country in the world, but also how I guess they could go about sort of looking to get them set up and looking to volunteer specifically in their country.
Oh, fantastic. Okay, so three parts. And so the first one is if you want to look at the national nodes, if you go onto the ECOP program website, you'll be able to find a list of national nodes on there. If the reason there isn't a national node in every country yet is simply because we haven't got the volunteers there to set one up yet. So, for instance, if there isn't a national node in your country, you're interested in volunteering, you're interested in setting it up, please do reach out to the ECOP program. The email address will be on the website. So if you reach out, we can go about helping you set up that national node. If it's within Europe, that there isn't a national node and you're interested in setting up, you can reach out to me, which is, I'm not sure I've got this right, I think it's europe@ecopdecade.org, or send me an email to the email address you can see in front of you. That's my personal one, just in case I got the other one wrong. If it's within Europe, if it's not within Europe, then on the ECOP program website, you'll be able to find the regional node coordinators for the other continents or globally as well. Is there any other questions that have popped up, Joe?
No, I don't think so, Conor. I think that's sort of great for people wanting to get involved and finding out how they can do so. I put the links into the chat for everyone, so feel free to go across onto the node link and see what is available at the moment and what we could look at getting involved with in the future. As Conor said, if you're in Europe, you can reach out to him, or if you're in Africa, like some people seem to be, then there's the African node coordination, and there may be another new country already. But yeah, thank you so much, Conor. I think we'll pass on to our final speaker, Tori, who's going to speak about IMarEST and how you get involved with the amazing work that they do. So I'll pass it over to you, Tori.
Joe, I'm just going to put this into presentation mode. Are you able to see that okay?
Yeah, we've got you, Tori.
Perfect. Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. My name is Victoria, and I am the Technical and Policy Executive for the IMarEST, which stands for the Institute of Marine Engineering, Science and Technology. Bit of a mouthful, but bear with me. So today I'm going to be talking about the volunteering opportunities at the IMarEST, but I'll also talk about membership as well and kind of the benefits of joining a learned institute. So who are we? So the Institute of Marine Engineering, Science and Technology is a charity, first and foremost, and we bring together globally over 12,000 marine engineers, scientists and technologists. So we're a multidisciplinary professional body and also a learned society. So as I mentioned, we are global and we're in over 120 countries. So you become a member with us essentially, and I'm going to speak to the student membership and the career development pathway. As you can see there's a few other membership grades, and this is for after you kind of progress through your studies and start to find a job. So student membership, first and foremost, student membership is free, which is amazing for ECOPs. And student membership has all types of benefits. One is volunteering, which I'll speak to a bit later. But being a student member essentially gives you access to our global network of technical advisors. You can chat to people in your industry, and there's a lot of stuff to do with CPD as well. So the career development pathway is for when you finish your studies. So when you are studying, that's for student membership and it's free. But the career development pathway is for your 5 years after you have finished graduating. So this 5 years is really critical in terms of you learning and progressing through your career, and the career development pathway gives you all those kind of CPD opportunities to kind of succeed in the area that you want. And I have to say, with the career development pathway, so student membership is free. The career development pathway, you get a discounted membership for the first 5 years. So some of the membership benefits of IMarEST, we have so many events that I can't even count. We have webinars, technical lectures, we have face-to-face conferences, and all the, so students usually get a discounted rate on these, which is great. We have our journals hub, books, and a digital archive. So if you are a student or an early career professional doing research, you can actually put your paper in to be submitted into one of our 2 journals. IMarEST Connect is our global networking platform, which we've just introduced. And this platform allows you to engage with everyone in IMarEST, which is about 12,000 members at the moment, which is really cool. So you can ask questions on this platform, you can get feedback, technical knowledge, and it's just kind of a great area to be talking to professionals from around the world. IMarEST TV, so this is where we put all our webinars, so we record all our webinars, and you can gain a lot of CPD from IMarEST TV. ECHO is where you can actually put all your CPD training, so you can, instead of putting it on a Word document yourself, you can tag everything that you've done in this space, and obviously our website. So specifically for students and kind of postgraduates, I spoke about 2 publishing opportunities. Our 2 journals are an engineering and technology one, but the one that you'd probably be more interested is in the operational oceanography journal. So you can put your paper in to be submitted, and then so you have all types of publishing opportunities. As I said, you have an array of resources, so from the library to IMarEST TV. Membership gives you your post-nominals, so the little letters that you see next to people's names. As I said, the networking opportunities are massive, so that's where these professional communities come in. And as a student or a postgrad, you can actually be awarded funding and various other awards to kind of help you with your research or your career or whatever else you're doing. So I'm going to speak a bit now the membership part is done. I'm going to speak a bit about the volunteering opportunities and how you can get involved. So I'm going to talk about 2 main groups that we work with. So we work with branches and we work with special interest groups. So I'm going to speak to branches first. So branches are member-led groups, and branches are also regional as well. So usually branches run meetings and lectures, and they're more face-to-face, and they have a more social aspect as well. You can become part of a branch, receive newsletter updates, event updates, so then you can start connecting with people in the industry face-to-face, which is great. Volunteering opportunities with special interest groups. So we have a wide range of special interest groups, and this is only half of our special interest groups. These are member-led groups that operate to really drive progress and learning in a specialised or emerging field in the marine sector. So we have engineering and technology special interest groups, so things from AI, autonomous shipping, mental health as well, to more of the science SIG. So you've got plastics, you've got ballast water, biofouling, marine mammals, and conservation. And one thing to say about special interest groups is these groups are global, unlike branches, which are more regional. So special interest groups can do all types of things. They can do anything from technical papers, policy submissions, to events such as webinars. So this is a great opportunity for you to kind of either present, get involved in the technical report writing, or even the policy submission. And special interest groups are always looking for younger people or ECOPs to actually join them to get that perspective as well. So in terms of the other volunteering opportunities, I've already mentioned technical papers, policy submissions, and technical events. And from either joining a branch or a special interest group, you can get all these volunteering opportunities. Conor mostly spoke about the benefits of volunteering, but the 3 kind of big benefits from joining IMarEST and having these volunteering opportunities include networking. So networking is probably one of the biggest benefits to volunteering, and that's a thread that we've seen through both Matt and Conor's presentations. And joining IMarEST, obviously you get that global networking platform. Learning and knowledge sharing, so you can share your knowledge as an ECOP, but also learn from more experienced people through webinars and technical events. And as Conor said as well, it looks great on your CV and it's very, very good for future employment. Volunteering cannot be understated for that future employment aspect as well. So this is my last slide. So as I said, student membership is free and then you get all the benefits kind of instantly. However, if you're not a student anymore, you can go to the IMarEST website and become a part of the career development pathway, which then gives you access to all the benefits. So if you have any questions, I'm super happy to take them, but thank you so much for listening. And yeah, hope to see you soon. Thank you.
Really great. Thank you so much, Toy. I don't see any questions coming in, but one thing I was wondering, I believe your sort of background and your master's was actually you looked at chemical pollutants and how it's affecting you. So how would you say you transitioned from sort of the academia side into the more industry-related areas? Did you find it a difficult transition, and is it something that you think a lot of people are doing, or is it something people should be exploring? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so it's interesting. I think, yeah, it's really dependent on what you want to do. So I did my master's back in Melbourne, Australia, if you didn't catch the accent. And I did my master's in marine pollution, kind of focusing on microplastics and the chemical pollutants as well. So I transitioned from kind of that research background into industry because I had been in research for a number of years with my master's and my bachelor's. I did a research component, but I really just wanted to take the next step into industry to see if I actually enjoyed it. Because for some people, they love researching and that's great. However, some people do want to take that next step into industry. I think with the IMarEST, we have most of the people who have taken up membership with us are part of the industry now. So by connecting with them, you can hear their stories and kind of see to where they have gotten in the industry. And it's really interesting when I'm speaking to members about they've done so much within their life. So they've gone from research to technical advisor to policy. So the breadth of what you can do is insane, quite frankly. But I think sometimes people don't know what they don't know. But IMarEST kind of features all those opportunities for you, and essentially you pick and choose what you want. And you can try something, and if you don't like it, that's totally fine. You can go on to something else. And that's the value of volunteering, I guess, because if you like a component of volunteering, you continue it. But if you don't like it so much, you can draw back and then maybe move on to something else. So I think, yeah, the value of volunteering really can't be understated.
That's great. Thank you so much. Yeah, it sounds like sort of the idea of actually looking at IMarEST is potentially really interesting for students that just don't know at the moment. They don't know what they want to get into, because obviously students are quite often academia focused. So just understanding the possibilities of it, something that took me a long time to understand myself as well. And I'm now personally in sort of the aquaculture world, and that's sort of the industry diversion I took. So yeah, I think that's about time. So thank you everyone for speaking. I think there are various links that have been posted into the chat. But the IMarEST, I've just put Toy, I put your email into the chat. I hope that's okay, your IMarEST. The ECOP UK and ECOP in general, if that's what you're looking at being a part of, I'm sure most people here are already, but make sure that you're telling everyone about these sort of things, because as we said, networking opportunities, really understanding what's out there and making connections, and also more webinars to come to help broaden your horizons and really develop your early stage careers. So thank you to all the speakers. It's been fantastic to have you. You've given really great insights, and I think we will stop there.
Thank you. Nice to meet you. Bye.
Thanks all. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.